How do I figure out what's next in my career? How do I align my work with what truly matters to me? And the biggest question of all, can I really design a career that I love? Hey, my name is Jen Smith, and I believe career success doesn't have to come at the expense of living a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a former HR leader and recruiter turned career coach, I've seen how traditional paths can leave people burned out or boxed in. And I know there's a better way, one that invites you to let go of outdated rules and outside expectations, one that evolves and supports meaningful growth over time. Whether you're feeling stuck, craving more clarity, or ready to expand within your current role and beyond, this show is for you. So grab your coffee or your kombucha, pull up a seat, and get ready to explore practical, modern strategies for building a meaningful, heart-based career. Because you deserve a long, radiantly happy, and healthy career. This is the Flourish Careers Podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Flourish Careers Podcast. I'm Jen Smith, your host, and I'm so glad you're here today for this special discussion. Before I introduce our guest, I want to share a little bit of the backstory. There was a time in my career where I was just going through the motions. I was completely on autopilot, literally wishing the days away where I was telling myself, I just have to get through this week and then I'll be able to breathe. Or at the end of this month, I'll finally be able to catch my breath. And then the next week came and the next month came and I said it again and again. Now, this was a season where I had gone through some really hard things and I didn't even realize how fully checked out I'd become until a few small practices started to pull me back. And these included things like getting outside just a few minutes every day, finding one tiny thing to look forward to each week, 5 minutes every morning with my future self before starting work for the day. And then eventually pausing a few times a year to ask myself, what do I actually want my life and career to look like? And little by little, Flourish Careers bloomed out of these moments. These practices literally saved me and helped me follow my heart in multiple ways. And all of them together planted another seed, and that seed became the in-season planner. But here's the thing, the in-season planner didn't become real until I was sitting inside a community created by today's guests. And I'll never forget it. One of them looked at me and asked a very simple question that cracked everything open. That was 2 years ago, and it's been beautifully messy ever since in the best possible way. And today, I get to talk about all of this with two of my faves, Jenny Blake and Sarah Young. Jenny Blake runs a delightfully tiny media and IP licensing company. She's the author of 3 award-winning books, Free Time, Lose the Busy Work, Love Your Business for Small Business Owners, Pivot, The Only Move That Matters Is Your Next One for Mapping What's Next in Life After College. For 2.5 years, she also published twice weekly personal essays about the stickier sides of self-employment at Rolling in Dough, featured on Substack. And then prior to launching her own business in 2011, Jenny co-created Google's global coaching program, which is still thriving today. She's hosted 2 podcasts with over 2 million downloads and brings this rare combination of brilliant strategy and genuine expansive heart to everything she does. Sarah Young is the founder and CEO of Zing Collaborative. She's the author of Expansive Impact, An Invitation to Lead in Everyday Moments, and one of the most grounded, fiercely loving people I know. Sarah works with senior leaders in high-growth environments or those that are leading through big change, and she has a gift of helping people show up fully with clarity and self-awareness even when everything feels uncertain. She's passionate about creating welcoming spaces and exploring small but impactful ways to lead in everyday moments. And together, we are going to talk about signs, serendipity, the vulnerability of creating something from the heart, and what becomes possible when you find the right community at exactly the right moment. Jenny, Sarah, I am so happy you're here. So, Jenny, let's start with you. You are the queen of what you call serendipity signage, and I love all your Substack posts about it. So, tell us about a time when it felt like something in your business was trying to get your attention through serendipity or divine winks and what you chose to do with it.
Well, first, I am so ecstatic to be here with both of you. Thank you, Jen, for this beautiful container and conversation. I feel like 2020, we all got pivoted. That was the title of my second book. But really, life kind of like, I don't know, it smacked me on the forehead. I wouldn't even call it a whisper. But what was just so interesting was what the message was that year. For me, I had been doing a lot of corporate speaking and licensing as it related to Pivot. And behind the scenes, I had this small private paid community that you were part of, Jen. It was called Momentum, and later I renamed it BFF. It was always behind a paywall. So I was never out in public talking about how to run a small creative business for solo or solo pluspreneurs, as I like to call them. And something about having 80% of my corporate revenue wiped off the books in the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, that was beyond the worst fears that I had even considered when I started into the self-employment journey in 2011. I had all these fears, but I never thought to ask, what if I lose all my clients at the exact same time for 2 years into the future? Didn't even occur to me. And so later that year, as I was dealing with all the change and sort of trying to do my best and rally, and I started daily podcasting for 3 months, this little whisper from my business that soon turned into a really clear download, as I would call it, as many of us would call it, was like free time. Just the word came to me, and the nervousness, but also a little spark of courage to what if I would double down on this part of my business? Because the truth was that I hadn't worked in corporate in many years at that point, like almost 10 years. My heart was with small business owners and with the systems behind the scenes and helping them have ideas and create things in the world. And so that was the whisper that became a roar, which was, don't go chasing the old, like bring in something new, even though it's scary, even though I had all the imposter syndrome fears around it. And I'm so glad I did. And it's not that the free time side of the business, now they're like two skis. There's Pivot and free time. And these are the two main IP skis of my business. It's not that free time so far surpassed anything I had done with Pivot, but it fuels me and feeds me every day in a way that had previously been missing.
Yes. And Jenny, you are so good with all the systems and all the things to help free your time. Like I've never seen somebody so amazing with all of these tools just to make your brain have more space and to have actual more time in your life, which, gosh, we all need in this world. And I'm so glad that you listened to that voice. And I've learned so much from you, both from the Pivot side when I left corporate and then now with Flourish and all of the business insights that you share. So it was certainly worth it. And it's kind of cool to have two skis, and kind of like move between the two. I think that makes it more interesting and fun.
Thank you. Every now and then they crisscross and go, hey, why are you?
Yeah. And you take a tumble on the hill and you get back up. Yeah.
Exactly. But never did learn to snowboard.
Oh my gosh, right. I think it's so fun. And I just have to say too, if anyone is curious, serendipity signage. So Jenny really talks about all the different signs in New York City, and it's really, really fun to see. And there's some Substack posts that are just so delightful to read about. And I just love how open you are to the signs and that you share them broadly. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, I'll give you some links to throw into the show notes.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of the favorites.
So Sarah, now how about you? Something in your business that was trying to get your attention through signs and synchronicities?
So one that comes to mind that I'm still learning to pay attention to is nearly every time I take actual time off and step away, and especially if I physically remove myself from my everyday surroundings, something big happens in my business in a positive way. So I remember a number of years ago, it was the first time I came down to a certain area of the Southeast that has always called to me. And I was sitting in the sunshine, actually sitting by the pool. And in that moment, I actually received an email from a client that was my biggest project to date. And it came in when I was literally sitting in the sunshine by the pool, like taking a moment, in this place that really fed my soul. And that's one that I'm still learning to pay attention to because it happens nearly every time. But I feel like I still, even after 13 years of running my business, it's still not always that natural for me to allow myself to step away and, disconnect and put my feet in the pool and sit in the sunshine. So that's one that speaks to me periodically when I do that. And I'm learning to listen to more. And I think, other whispers that come to mind, back before starting my company, when I was still working in the corporate world, there were lots of little whispers that just grew louder and louder and louder over time that eventually led me to step out of the corporate world and start my business. And I think, another one that comes to mind that we have to touch on is just the synchronicity between you and I, Jen, where, I feel like we got connected in a very sort of roundabout way. We had never met in person, and the amount of synchronicity and divinely timed moments that we continue to uncover are almost sort of unbelievable if we were to just write them down. Everything from like the day that a piece of snail mail arrives to things that we spot out in, the city to a book that we discover or whatever it is. So I think that is another one that comes to mind just in terms of the synchronicity that flows between us.
Yes, for sure, Sarah. I'm so grateful that you mentioned that. So 2 things. One, I just picture you in the sunshine. You have this glow today. Jenny mentioned it before we hit record. Like you have this beautiful glow today. And I could just see why all of the things are attracted to you when you're in this like calm space that you're so happy to be in, especially with, the relocation to where you are now and all of that. Like there's something to be said about being in a space that you're attracted to and just feeling calm and comfortable and then having those opportunities like be attracted to you. I mean, that's super interesting to think about. So thank you for sharing that. So I think that's a sign for all of us to take more vacation.
Yeah. I'm still working on that one too.
Yeah, same. That's okay. We'll continue to work on it. And then, oh my gosh, our soul sister divine connection is literally insane. I feel like maybe we should like write an article or something together because it's pretty wild, the synchronicities that we have had together. And I literally get chills when I think about some of them. And I'll just mention, I think our Mimis are here with us right now because we both have Mimis that are angels. And I think that they like divinely bring things together for us. And it's just so special. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, of course.
Yes, you guys are my favorite too. When I was leaving corporate and was trying to see the signs and, make the decision to leave, which you guys both know is like the scariest decision ever. I want to share just a quick little story. So when I bought the domain for flourish.careers, which was kind of a weird one because I was like, it's not .org, it's not .com, like no one's going to get it. But I was like, I'm just going with it. I bought flourish.careers. I went to Barnes & Noble that day and at the register, I'm just going to show you guys this because it's sitting in front of me. And the story came up when I was thinking about you, Sarah, is this tray.
Oh my goodness.
That says Flourish. And Sarah, it's like our like green with flowers. It's so for listeners, it's a tray. It's green with like pink flowers and it says Flourish in big white letters. That was literally at the checkout. And the day I bought the domain, I'm like, what?
That's
like, how
wild.
is this even a thing? Right. So then like you just follow the sign and then it opens the doors and you just kind of keep going. So I think that's one of the scariest things. So for any listeners that are thinking about leaving their corporate career behind, here's 3 folks, followed the signs, followed the whisper, followed the intuition, and it worked. So amazing. I feel like when you trust that the universe has your back, it just brings you all the things you need and it's way more fun that way. So.
And I would also like to add, there's a meme that I need a signy or sign. I remember hearing a teacher say, you can literally say, please hit me over the head with the sign. I'm feeling really unsure, or I need it to be crystal clear, or I don't need just one. I want 3 signs. Like you can be a little bit demanding about this and a little specific of just, please, I need it to be crystal clear. I'm feeling really foggy. And you kind of set that intention and then, you go about the world for the next 24, 48 hours. And even if you don't 100% believe in a higher consciousness or the spiritual realm, your subconscious mind is still going to be attuned to what it's seeing and hearing around you. And your subconscious, your intuition will pick up what you need. It's such a process of leaning into that trust, but it's also a muscle that builds with practice.
It is. It's a practice for sure. I remember, Sarah, you and I recorded another podcast about intuition and energy. And I remember you sharing that. We'll link to that for folks too. I remember you sharing that it is a practice. And like once you start listening and noticing and then just taking action, that's another thing. You have to take the action and then you just learn more and more. And then it's there for you all the time. So thank you for mentioning that, Jenny.
It reminds me of Tosha Silver. I think, Jenny, you were the first person to tell me about Tosha, but for anyone listening who wants a little just nudge in that direction, I feel like her work is so good and you can just read a page at a time. And I feel like she talks about that too, if I remember correctly, Jenny, about like asking for those signs or kind of just being in relationship with the world in that way. So I love her work for anyone interested in that.
Yeah.
Yes. I know Jenny's a huge fan. I am too. She's amazing.
She changed my life.
We'll put her in the show notes too. So thank you, Sarah. Good rec there. Now, speaking of synchronicity, Jenny, we have to share the New York City sidewalk story. This was insane. So please share.
This was really wild. Jen mentioned I had a Substack for 2.5 years called Rolling in Dough, and that was about the stickier sides of self-employment. It was really fun, and it just got me in such a creative and observant mode because I was publishing 2 essays a week. And so I was always looking at my environment. What am I seeing? Donuts? Am I seeing something interesting? Am I seeing serendipity signage? And I was always like, I still am, even while I'm not actively doing the creative writing. Anyway, one day I just see this pile. It was around the holidays, maybe just after Christmas. And let me start by saying that I took Ryder, my German Shepherd, out in the morning. And I'm always looking around. I'm always looking for people and dogs. And there was nothing. So we walk down the end of my block. We go to the park. And on the way back, that's when I see a pile. And it's a pile of notebooks. And I'm thinking, oh, I love free stuff. Like my husband, half of our furniture is just free stuff from the sidewalk. I have a bookshelf. We have a coffee table. Certainly, I would pick up a notebook or a book, which I've done many times. And I look down and I see this pile of workbooks. I'm like, oh, these are gorgeous and they're untouched. They're unused. And by the way, they were in front of Julia Fox's house, who is a neighbor. So I'm like, oh, what planners does Julia Fox use? How interesting. And so I bend down to collect them and pick them up. And I see a Polaroid photo with my face on it and Jen's face on it. And then I realized she had sent me her gorgeous journal planners with a beautiful handwritten note, a photo of us, a pen. And there they were, splayed out on the sidewalk. It must have just happened because it wasn't there when I took Ryder out for the walk. It was coming home. And thankfully, everything was still there because another passerby could have also easily picked it all up. Again, it's like this beautiful, very compelling pile of free stuff. And so I was able to collect it all. Nothing was missing. I think because it was in the holidays, somebody had just seen the package delivered to our place, or maybe it, quote, fell off the truck of whoever was delivering it. But it was at least half of a huge city block away from my apartment. So there was no accident here. I don't know if it ever even made it to my stoop or vestibule inside the door. But I was very grateful to have retrieved the package in full and gotten my journal planners. But it was just like such a cosmic, it was a close call because so many other things could have happened where I wouldn't have received them. And of course, Jenny would have just resent them. But it was still like a very funny and sort of only in New York kind of story and moment.
This story, I can't even tell you. And okay, so listeners, here I am. It was a Sunday. I remember this. It was Saturday or Sunday. I think it was a Sunday. And I was driving with Jeremy and Tula home from our walk. We went to a park. And Jenny sends me this text message of her dog, beautiful Ryder, and all the planner journals sprawled out on the street of New York City like a mess. And my stomach dropped. And I think my reply was like, what? I had no idea what was going on. And then Jenny shared the story. And I literally I don't even know how this is possible that you could find them. And it was on the way home from the park. It wasn't, so it like happened while you were at the park on your way home. And the fact that you saw them and they weren't totally a mess and they were still there. And you even had the pen and the card and all the things. I mean, if that wasn't meant to be, I don't know what was. I mean, that clearly wasn't the unboxing plan that I had envisioned when I sent them to you. However, the fact that they were there and you found them that morning is just pure synchronicity in my mind. And it's just magic.
Yeah. And like, what was kind of cool was it was this moment of me being so naturally drawn to them. Like they were so beautiful and interesting. And before I knew that they were yours. So it was like a completely unbiased, genuine delight at seeing this file and then realizing you're the one that made them. It's really, really cool.
Well, I'm so glad you were right there at that time and were able to find them. That was just the universe creating a fun story for us, I feel like, especially after you guys helped me bring these beauties to life. And it was such a fun process. And we'll talk more about that. But the whole Business Besties brunch. And then two years later, now that's the other thing. Okay, so the seed was planted in Business Besties brunch. And then these things took a little time, right? They took their time to make their way. 2 years later, I'm sending the package and that's what happens. I don't know. It's just part of the story. It's so fun. So thank you for sharing, Jenny. And I'll never forget that moment. So I appreciate all of it.
And maybe we'll get to this, but can we just celebrate for a moment that when you signed up for Business Bestie Brunch, you didn't say, I have a book in progress. It was, I have the pollen, like a bee was the recurring theme for you,
right.
a spirit mini animal / insect. But it wasn't like, oh, I have this thing in progress and I just need to finish it. No, it was like, I wonder if someday maybe I could think about writing a book. That was how much in a little pollen state your spark was. So talk about listening to a whisper. You had this whisper and the whisper wasn't even telling you, yes, Jen, you should create a book. It was like, could I maybe someday? Does it make sense? And that's how quietly it started. And so just, to see it come to fruition and splayed out, unboxed for me right there on the sidewalk 2 years later was like, it's a very magical. And I do think a co-created journey that you went on. It was like co-created with something bigger than you. That divine spark that we've been talking about that threaded through the project. Sarah and I were so honored to help take it from that little whisper, a little piece of pollen into this big, beautiful thing that like you're really the one, because Business Bestie Brunch was a day. It was a day and a half. You're the one that then continued shepherding it and getting your dad involved. And just the way you brought it to fruition, it seemed from the outside, I know, of course, you hit rough patches, but it was just seemed like such a divinely guided process where you kept leaning in and trusting, even when you would hit roadblocks along the way.
Oh, Jenny, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I mean, I really had no intention of creating a planner until Business Besties Brunch. And we were just talking about my work and what we could do with it. And I think it was Jenny that said, have you ever thought about a journal or a planner? And then literally cracked everything open. And from there, we worked together and really put the foundation in place that then later translated into what it is today. And I have to plant one more seed. And then we're going to talk about the vulnerability of bringing something into the world, because that's a thing. But Sarah also during Business Besties Brunch, Sarah and I went on our 18,000 step walk through Brooklyn. And she and I shared a little bit about my health challenge and my journey. And she said a few words to me and she just said, you could write a book about that. That's it. That's all she said. And then literally the chapter in Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go, was also created in the same time period that I was building the journal. So out of one coaching experience, 2 things happened just from, I think, intuition, stars aligning, like-minded people being together. And it was just so special. All of it was so special. So yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The vulnerability of bringing something into the world, especially something you literally create from nothing, is a thing. Sarah, let's start with you on this one. Tell us about a time when you felt that vulnerability. You guys have books, you have newsletters, like businesses, all the things.
Yeah. So something I realized about myself, especially as I was reflecting, in preparation for this conversation, is for some of the really big things that I have brought into the world, I keep them very close to the vest until they're actually in the world. So I did this with my book, which goes against every recommendation for book publishing possible. Like, you're supposed to give previews and tell people it's coming and, tell your community that they should be excited. And I really didn't tell people at all that I was writing a book, except for my handful of close friends. And Jenny and I talked pretty much every day through that process of writing our books together. But one of my best friends teases me. She's like, Sarah, you literally never told me you were writing a book until the day it was published. Like, so I think one thing I tend to do, which is maybe not always good, but I keep it pretty close until it's actually in the world. I think partially because I'm not always sure it's going to make it out into the world. Like, I really didn't know if my book would actually be finished and published in the world. I wasn't sure even up until, moments before it was published. And also because I do think that creative process, especially if we're really tuned into like our intuition and our inner whisper and our inner knowing, I actually don't like that to be overly influenced by, outside sources or outside inputs. So I think that's something I've realized about myself in terms of the process. And then I think in terms of when it is out into the world, yes, absolutely, that vulnerability is so real. I'm curious if either of you had this as well, but I know for sure, I remember very vividly the morning after my book was published. It was like, had just gone live on Amazon and all the places. And I remember I literally sat up, like I physically was like ejected upright in bed. And I was like, and I had this huge like gasping for air. And I was like, what if some of my, former colleagues read this and what will they think? And I was like, I literally could not breathe for a few minutes, thinking about, who might this book reach and what will they think? And if I'm being super honest with myself too, I didn't really promote the book much. Part of that is very aligned with my primary intention of serving my clients and my community with the book. And also, if I'm being completely transparent about that, I didn't want the book to get that big because I didn't want to be subjected to all the things that happen when too many public eyes reach your work. So I think that vulnerability is real, and of course, only gets more real the more ripples something might have. So I think for me, like how I tend to work through that is just coming back to the why and coming back to, okay, what was my primary intention behind writing this? Like, who do I hope this will serve? And how can I re-anchor to that? And, in the book, I talk about like the trusted few versus the ambiguous many. And that's something I try to practice for myself too, around like, okay, like what, this is really for my trusted few and for my community of the people it's meant to serve, and working to release, perceptions of the ambiguous many.
Gosh, Sarah, I can feel that in my core. Totally. Oh, it is a thing. And that's one thing I admire about both of you so much, is that you do it your way, in a way that's going to feel the best for you versus what everybody else is doing or what all the hype is about. Like literally the word launch makes me sweat. Like I can't even use that word because it makes me sweat. And so I love that you are so intentional, and I really admire that about you in the way that you bring things into the world and how thoughtful they are. But that vulnerability is real. And Sarah, I just have to share with you guys real quick. The morning that Brave Women at Work, Lessons in Letting Go came out. Now, this was only a chapter. It wasn't even a book. Like, I can't even imagine a whole book, but like the chapter came out. I was freaking out. Sarah texted me the sweetest text about vulnerability and vulnerability hangovers. And oh my gosh, it was literally like a hug, because I felt so much better just like sharing that. And so that's what I hope that this question and this conversation helps others when they bring something into the world. It is vulnerable. It is so scary. We all go through it, right? So, so Jenny, how about you?
Well, I love everything you shared, Sarah. And yeah, the vulnerability hangover is so real after it goes live. But then there's the preliminary, like pre-hangover or dread of just, It's vulnerable at every step. It's vulnerable raising your hand to think, I have something unique to say in this world of 8 billion people and so much noise online. It's vulnerable to think, oh, I have a new twist on a topic. It feels like everything is being said all day, all the time. It's vulnerable to think, like, what will the criticism be? For me, that's one of my big ones. It is vulnerable to create the thing, to worry about mistakes, to launch. And then it's really vulnerable asking for favors, like sending a really early draft to the people you most admire and asking for endorsement blurbs in the case of a book, asking people to help promote it, asking your own community to buy it. Like the whole thing is so uncomfortable. And I love what you shared, Sarah, about staying connected to who it's really for and how it's going to help them. That really helps me too. I think for me, my first book, Life After College, was the scariest because I hadn't gone through the process at the time. I didn't know any other authors. The whole thing was brand flippin' new. But probably the most vulnerable thing I've ever done is Rolling in Dough, because I was feeling like nobody was talking about how hard the last few years had been for business owners. And somebody needed to say it. And I felt so strongly about that. And yet, in order for me to say it, it meant revealing, oh, things aren't going so well. Oh, I'm having a hard time. It meant peeling back the curtain on my, I was only ever willing to present like a very sunny, optimistic part of myself previously. And this meant showing the other parts of myself. They're all part of me, but I had not allowed the other parts to have any voice in my platform because my fear was it would become a, self-fulfilling prophecy. If I talk about business being hard, it will just get harder. People will really stop hiring me. And thank you, Jen, for not proving that to be the case since Business Bestie Brunch launched in the middle of all this. And the point I'm trying to make here is with Rolling in Dough, that was maybe the first time. I've gotten some 1-star reviews on my books, but Rolling in Dough was the first time where I actively had people I respected and admired writing back privately or publicly in the comments, kind of correcting me, telling me I'm wrong, I'm thinking about it incorrectly, just explaining things, judging me. I felt like, wow, this really triggers some people by me looking at the tough stuff or money stuff or things that maybe other people are not comfortable with or wouldn't be comfortable putting online. Wow, I had to confront a new level of this. And it was very vulnerable. And I'm going to say, truthfully, it did make writing and publishing every next post harder than the last, because now the kind of troll voice wasn't fictional. It was like real and happening. And yet it was always worth it, because for every one of those comments I would get 2, 3, 4, 5 saying, oh, this is exactly what I needed to hear today, or this week, or I feel less alone. And for me, I would so much rather I feel a little wounded by the slings and arrows. I'm not someone who can handle a lot of that, like that I see in some of the online discourse. So I'm not nearly as courageous as some people online. But knowing that I could help someone else feel less alone and less overwhelmed it just fuels me. It's so part of my core, part of who I am. I don't see the point in pretending. That's just not how I want to live. It's not how I want to show up in the world. And it's not what I think people need. So yes, just to extra build on what Sarah said, staying connected to that. And I feel like each of us, we are on a soul journey with what we create. And I have always known, I've written 3 books now, there's not another book I could have written. It's not like I'm writing the book that's most strategic for my business. Yes, that might be one consideration. Or let me write the book that will get me a book deal with the big 5 publisher. Let me write the book that will get me an agent. There is a book inside of me. It wants to be written. I get some of a say in that, but the book has its own soul. The book is its own thing, like sort of like an entity in the world. And so the reason I bring this up in the concept of vulnerability is that for me, it's not an intellectual exercise. The vulnerability is coming from a soul place where it's like I'm willing to get over the mental blocks and fears for this kind of soul-based expression and putting that out in the world. And I still don't find it very easy. And I am still refusing book number 4 that knocks at my door. Like, nope, not going to do it. Don't have the courage. And maybe that's also a sign that it's not quite time. So I try to balance both sides.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, Jenny. And like something that comes up as you're saying that is I feel like for all of the things we've all worked on, they have that like soul connection where like Jen, like when you did your planner, you had a vision of how you wanted the planner to be. You did not settle for less. You printed it on beautiful paper. When the first paper wasn't good enough, you redid it for better paper. Like the covers are beautiful watercolor, local illustrations. Like it's a sort of like, intuitive, spiritual, creative expression. Jenny, obviously you and I both went through this when we published our books of like, we both had a vision for what we wanted our book to look like and feel like in our hands with colors and, spot color. And, when I was working on my book, the publisher I was working with, they wanted a different title. And I do believe if I had a different title, it probably would have sold more copies because it's shorter and it's catchier and it would probably be more marketable and more sellable, so to speak, but it didn't feel intuitively right to me. And, I know we both like fought hard to have the kind of cover we wanted to have. And so I think those things in combination can feel especially interesting as we're talking about vulnerability because, for all of the things we're talking about, we're not just checking a box to put something into the world to maximize revenue. We're really tuning into what feels true and authentic and aligned and then putting that into the world. And that's like a whole other level of vulnerability when it really is that sort of intuitive, authentic expression of, who we are and what feels aligned. And I think at times that can actually make that vulnerability hangover piece feel even more amplified.
The word brave just keeps coming up for me because it is brave to create something. It's brave to share it. It's brave to not follow what everyone else thinks you should be doing. Sarah, to your point, I love that you shared that. All of our work is really soulful and purposeful and part of who we are. And that's just different. And it makes the vulnerability tenfold. I've admired both of you for sharing so openly and bravely, and you allowed me to do it. And hopefully this conversation allows others to do it. So thank you. Thank you. We've talked about Business Besties Brunch a few times, and I just want to talk real quickly about the creative community and how that opens things up. So this wasn't just one day. Let me go back. So this was actually a 3-month coaching experience. It was one day in person in fabulous New York City in the fall, which nothing's better than that. And then it followed up with multiple coaching sessions after that. So Jenny, let's start with you. What is it about being in a creative community that opens things up?
Well, even a call like this, I feel like we can build on each other and get ideas from each other. And it can be really solitary, whether as a business owner or working on a creative project. And so much to my chagrin, because I secretly in my heart, I love to be alone and work alone. I love it. Love it. I'm not someone who gets lonely easily. That said, my work is better and richer when it is interacting with others. And Sarah and I, when we were writing our books, we were book buddies. And there would be things like one of my insecurities when writing is this the sentence that's going to show up as the title of the 1-star review? Is this the sentence? Is this the sentence? Literally sentence by sentence, wondering like, is this, people are going to rip me to shreds? And so it was really helpful. Sarah and I would throw those ones we were afraid of in a Google Doc and give each other feedback, or things where maybe our intuition, our gut was like, ooh, this feels edgy. Is it the right kind of edgy, or should I take this out? And it's just sometimes you just absolutely need that from someone else, because you cannot see it when it's a very big, complex project. Even on an email. Now you could just throw it into Claude and say, I've thrown a few corporate client emails about like a big contract renewal. I've thrown them into Claude or ChatGPT, and they're like, this is way too nice for what, for a client who hasn't paid in 5 months. Try this instead. And while I'm generally allergic to all forms of AI slop writing, it has helped me with certain things that I work on, like people pleasing or being overly permissive, or as Tara McMillan would call it, wage theft from myself by underpricing. So I think sometimes we need that mirror that happens in community, especially around creative projects.
I think something I have realized about myself is to state it in the most basic way, I feel much more inspired and creative when I am out in the world, in community, in connection, and all those little sparks throughout the day, throughout the conversation, whatever it might be, they really fuel me and help me to feel more alive and more creative. And so I think at a very basic level for me, like I'm, in Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFP, which it's extroverted, but also, small, rich conversation. So I also do enjoy like time to refuel and be alone. That said, I notice even in the course of a day, if I don't have as much interaction or have as much of that conversation or community, I just simply don't feel as inspired. So I think basic level, being in relationship with the world and allowing, the world to give me feedback, and little data points and little sparks. That for me is very inspiring and very fueling. And I think in terms of creative community, not to overly generalize in terms of, men and women, but I think largely for many of us as women, we do well when we're able to process and dialogue and be in conversation, especially with other women. And I love those exchanges each day with friends via text or Marco Polo or voice notes or whatever it is. And having that community to, again, just bounce ideas off of or gut check things that arise that, like Jenny's pointing to, can feel very kind of strange in isolation. Like, oh, we get this request, and in isolation, it can be a little hard to know what to do with it. But if we can process it and work through it with our community or our creative community, I find that to be really rich and really meaningful.
Yes, to all of this. And I too am somebody that really likes the alone time and the spaciousness just to like dream. But there is something about a community, and I don't know what it is. It's almost like, I don't like the word container, but I'm just going to use it because I feel like the second I am around a community, and I'll just use Business Besties Brunch, like literally the second that happened, something shifted, like the energy shifted. And I don't know if it's like, if you're investing in yourself or betting on yourself, even that's a piece of it. But then just being in the energy of other creative people or other people that think like you or other people that you admire or whatever it is, there's something that shifts. And it just, for me, like brings so many new ideas. And that what you said, Sarah, about like it fueling you, like there's just something about it. I felt the same way when I was working on the Brave Women at Work book. I mean, that would never have happened if it wasn't for that community. Same thing for the in-season planner. It would never have happened if it wasn't for you guys in this community. So there is just something super special. The second you're in community, it shifts the energy. So anyways, thank you both for sharing that. I couldn't agree more.
One thing to add to that I just have to say, because I get really fired up about this, you both know this. And I think being in the right kind of community that is intentionally created and cultivated and held, that I think is the distinction. And I think we are all really like sensitive to that. So I think there are a lot of communities out there and not all communities are created equally. So not only being in it, but being in the containers, so to speak, that are intentionally and thoughtfully designed, facilitated, and held such that that creativity and conversation can take place.
Yes, so and yes.
True.
And by the way, if you guys do Business Besties Brunch again, I'm putting in a plug. Everyone listening needs to go. So we're just going to put that out there. Now we have
to do it again. Now we have to get a link ready.
Actually, the question has been answered.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to add too, what you said is so powerful, Jen, the investing in yourself, because that's also vulnerable. Mm-hmm. It's really vulnerable, especially for these more high touch kind of immersive experiences. You are putting hard-earned money on the line and time and trust in whatever thing that you're going to be a part of. And so I think that's also really vulnerable. And your intuition will tell you, like, is this the right thing at the right time? And I'm always asking, thanks to Tosha Silver, is this in the highest good for all involved? And you can't know. You didn't even know what you were going to work on or walk away with. And so, yeah, I love that you trusted yourself. And maybe the spark of the book started with you just not knowing why, but thinking, oh, I am going to sign up for this. And that moment, I do agree with you. I think it goes, something in you shifts from maybe being a little bit in fear and sort of stasis and the goo state. And all of a sudden you put real money down and time. And now you have accountability, a loving container and a community. And so you basically then, I think of it like booking a one-way flight for a big fun trip. It's like, all you got to do is book the flight. The rest does fall into place. And I feel like that's to your credit, Jen, because you're really good about doing that and taking those risks. It is a leap.
It is. Yeah. And it goes back to that intuition, like just following your intuition and your guide to say like, yes, this is for me. And that literally the invitation for Business Besties Brunch, there was no way I was not doing it. Like it was just a full body yes. And look what came from it. And I'm just so, so grateful for both of you for creating that very special, very intentional just experience. It was just one of the best things I've ever done. Oh my goodness. I feel like we could chat forever. And so as we come to a close, I'd love to just hear about what each of you are feeling energized about right now. There's so much going on in our world. So maybe something you're building or learning or loving. So Sarah, let's start with you.
A lot of the things that are fueling me right now are analog in nature. So in the world of AI and all of the things, I'm getting a lot of energy and inspiration from things like cooking and cookbooks and flowers and community and thinking about ways to combine various things along those lines. So something that I guess has been inspiring me is just largely centered on community and how to lean into that in person in small everyday ways. And sometimes that weaves in some of the other things I really love too, like cooking and hosting and food and conversation.
And flower arranging.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree more. So my AI is analog intelligence. That is my AI. Yes.
That is so good. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Everyone.
That is so good.
Pen to paper. So use your planner, pen to paper, analog intelligence, cooking, community, creating with my hands, gardening, all of those things. I couldn't agree more.
Gardening.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Jenny, how about you? You're probably on the other side of the AI.
Jenny is much more advanced.
I was going to say, I'm going to represent the other side of the spectrum. Oh my goodness. Like whether pivoting in careers, AI is changing so much so quickly. And I just feel like a magnet. I can't stop researching it and talking about it and thinking about it. And the mantra of pivot, if change is the only constant, let's get better at it. But now with AI, it's like every next step you take, the map changes completely and it's wild. So I feel really immersed in trying to understand the changes that are already happening. And I'm seeing it in my own business where I'm like, I don't need to hire this person and I don't need to hire that one and that one. And so then on the free time side, oh my goodness, like agentic AI that basically act as team members doing recurring things. I get a morning briefing every day as it scans my calendar, email, and Slack channels. Like it's wild. And so the whole calling on the free time side is helping small business owners set their time free through smarter systems. And AI has just like poured gasoline on the fire on that front. And so I'm playing with it, loving it, and building on Business Bestie Brunch. It's been really rewarding for me. I taught an idea collection course, which is kind of merging how do you collect ideas, but what is the back-end systems that helps you catch them and collect them so that you can synthesize and create in the world and write something like a book. And so I've been doing VIP days where I roll up my sleeves, kind of like Business Bestie Brunch, but in a one-on-one way. And those have been so rewarding, specifically around how do you collect ideas and inspiration and how do you create the systems that allows you to do your highest and best, most strategic work and get it out into the world in a consistent way. Because I do feel like that is one of the things that AI cannot take and won't take, because at least for now, a lot of the writing just sounds like complete and utter infuriating slop. So it's been very rewarding to work with people in that way.
Oh my gosh. And Jenny, you are such a whiz with this stuff. I hopped on a community call, and you just kind of like went through it real quick, but I was just amazed. Like it is happening. And I feel like this also just amplifies your whole free time message like tenfold. And it's just thinking about both of those together for you is so wild to think about the possibilities, which is really, really cool. I'm excited for you.
And for all of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much. You both bring the best energy and thoughtfulness and ideas to everything you do. And just thank you so much for joining me today. What a delight to get to do this.
Thank you, Jen.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, of course.
Likewise. Thanks for all these awesome questions. And big thanks to everybody who's here listening.
And who knows, maybe the next idea is already finding its way to someone listening right now. So hopefully that's the case. And listeners, I'm certain you're going to want to connect with Jenny and Sarah. So sign up for their newsletters, buy their books. We'll have all the links in the show notes. And as always, you can find the notes from today's episode on the blog at flourish.careers/blog. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.